Good night. Hey everyone, tonight God is good and God is good all the time. My name is Irma J. Spirit Divine. I'm here to give you a word on tonight. And the title gonna be Jesus teach parable of the wise and the foolish builder. The parable of the wise and the foolish builder. Now this story about Jesus. He teaching the parables of the wise and the foolish builder. The parable illustrates the importance of building one life on obedience to the teaching and example of Jesus. So Jesus was in a crowd and he was preaching, also preaching to his disciples. If he preaching that word, you had some was hearing the word, then you had some heard the word but not paying no attention and did not put it to practice. How some people can just be listening at something but really not listening to it. So you had some people listen to the word and you had some was not listening to the word, was not taking it to practice. So one day Jesus wanted to teach people how to stay strong even when hard things happen. Now he told them a story about a big stone, a wise man and a foolish man. Jesus gonna always tell his stories and parables to get his point across. So wisdom is a house is built, and by understanding, it is established. By knowledge, the rooms are filled with all precious and pleasant riches. So wise, having a shown experience, knowledge, and good judgment. So wise. When you wise, you having good judgment. Making the best choice. So a foolish is lacking good sense or judgment. It's unwise. Foolish making bad choices. Not paying attention to the word. Want to do things your way. That being foolish. So this story will come from Luke chapter 6, verse 46 through 49. The wise and the foolish builder. For the 6, Jesus said, why you call me Lord, Lord, and do not do what I say? Because some of them just being disobedient and want to say, Lord, Lord. So he was like, why are you calling me Lord and y'all being disobedient? You're not doing what I say do. Jesus had been speaking to a great crowd, including his 12 disciples. So Jesus finished explaining that his followers that he must be crucified, prosecuted by the world, but that they need to forgive. Now he giving them commandments to do. He let them know I'm about to be prosecuted. I'm about to be So he telling them when he gone. He telling them what he want them to do. You know that they need to forgive, bless their enemies, and that's why Jesus has said, "Why do you call me Lord if you not doing what I say?" So for the servant, I will show you what he is like, who comes to me and hear my words and put them into practice. Now he talking about the wise one that listens to his word, and put it to practice. So when you hear that word and you put it to practice, you is being wise because anything that Jesus will preach, it gonna always be good to benefit you. He not gonna preach nothing that gonna harm you. So Jesus explained that if they make the hard choice to obey his word, their lives will be steady. No matter what hardship will come in their lives, they will not be shaken. So that was a wise person. When that wise person hear that word, and so when the hardship come, when the storm and the wind come, they will not be shaken. So the peace of God will surpass all the understanding will guard your heart and your mind in Jesus Christ. So when we obey Christ, we receive an inner peace that is resistant to the challenges of the world. You know, so when you wise and you hear that word and you take it into practice, you making a wise choice. You making a wise choice. And when that storm come, when that wind come, when that hardship come, when the devil come at you at full blast, you will not be shaken and you will not be destroyed because you done took that word in, So Father 8, he is like a man is building a house who dug down deep and laid a foundation on a rock. Now he's still talking about this wise person. So when a flood came, the termite came and struck the house down, but could not shake it because it was well built. He was wise. This was a wise person. So he took that word in Jesus was saying. So when you take that word in, and when that hardship come, that stone come, you will not be shaken. You will not crumble. You will not be destroyed. So that means you built your house on a rock because you listened to that word. See, when you listen to that word, them words are very powerful. And you need to suck it in when Jesus preached that word to you. That's why he said they had wise people and they had foolish people. Because, he was preaching to a crowd. And so just the wise person had built their house on a rock. So when that stone came, that hardship came, that wind came, that house did not fall down. It was not shaken. So that's when you're wise. That's when you listen to Jesus' word and you put it to use. Now Jesus equipped obedience with a solid foundation. Now if we put our true faith in Jesus and believe that what he said is true, you will obey. The act of obedience in the faith that driven those acts that would be a strong connection with Christ. So he always talking parables. Now he's talking about house and he's talking about building, but deep down inside he's talking about building a connection with him. He's saying building a connection with him. If you build a connection with him and you listen to that word, so when that hardship come and that storm and that wind come, 2-3 days ago I preached on how he calmed that storm. He said, be still. When the disciples all shaken up and afraid and scared, and he had peace in that storm. So that's what he's saying. If you have a connection with him, and when all these things come, you will not be shaken. You will not fall down. You will not be destroyed. And that's what he was saying. Have that connection with Jesus that the world cannot destroy. And see, that's what he's saying. You have that connection with him, and the world cannot destroy. So just like the house, the wind, the storm, and everything came, at the house, struck the house, but the house refused to fall down. And that's what it's saying. You have that strong connection with Jesus. No matter what come at you, you will not fall down. You will not be destroyed. You will not be shaken. So only in him can we be assured that our foundation is a rock solid. So we gotta have that connection with Jesus, so our foundation can be rock solid. So anytime he was preaching that words in there, they were supposed to suck that in. You remember Mary, every time Jesus was preaching, she was at his feet. She was being comfortable because she was sucking all that word in, listening and paying attention. So 49. Now he talk about the foolish person now. But the one who hear my word and does not put it into practice is like a man who built his house on the ground without a foundation. Now, and that's something. Now, you don't want to build your house without a foundation. The foundation that make the house solid. So, but you being foolish. He's saying your house is built like it's not, don't have no foundation. So the moment the term is struck, that house, it collapsed. You know, it collapsed, and it was destroyed completely. So because he heard the word, but he did not put it into practice. And that's what I'm saying. Some people can hear the word, but did not hear the word. So he heard the word along with the wise person, but he did not take it into practice. The wise person heard the word and took it into practice. Listen and pay attention. The foolish person did not pay attention. He heard the word but did not pay attention. So when that stone came and that hurricane came, you know, and struck that house, immediately that house collapsed. So faith is obedience, and anything else is foolish. So now we see why the Lord said, why Jesus said, why you call me Lord, Lord, and you're not obeying my commandment. You're not listening to that word. You're not sucking that word in. You, you know, so the foolish man heard the word but did not obey Jesus' command, did not obey the words that he heard, did not put it to practice at all. So they follow. So they follow Jesus. While refusing to obey his command. That's why he said, why y'all calling me Lord? Y'all not obeying my commandment. So you had half of the people just hearing the word but not paying it no attention. And you had half was wise, heard the word and was obeying Jesus. But you had some wasn't, so why they were refusing to obey his command, they started following him and calling him Lord. And then following Jesus requires faith in him. So you following Jesus, you got to have faith in him. You got to have faith in him. Because everywhere he going, he preaching that word. So if you following him and listen to that word, and you not sucking it in, what is you following him for? So those who do not obey and prove their faith is weak. Sitting on the surface of unstable ground. The trouble will enlarge the ground out from under their lives, and they will crumble. You know, so the foolish person a weak faith, had a weak faith. Heard the word and just was not sucking it in at all. It already, his house was like no foundation. It said, with no foundation. So when that stone come, when that battle hard time come, he automatically gonna crumble and be destroyed. They just gonna everything just gonna collapse for him. For not obeying Jesus' word. He heard it, but he just don't want to obey it. Just to build your house on sand. So it was like he ain't had no foundation. It was like he built his house on sand. Who built a house on sand? Nobody. You have to be a foolish person to build your house on sand. So to be wise, and build your house on a rock, you have to listen to Jesus' words and put it to practice. Obey what he's saying. And have a strong connection with him. So when that hard time come, that storm and that wind come, you will not crumble. You will not fall down. You will not be destroyed. So obey what he's saying and have a strong connection with him, that you won't crumble or be destroyed when a storm come in your life. Be wise. Showing knowledge and hearing that word. So being wise, hear that word. Make the right choice. Have knowledge to hear that word and take it to practice. That's being wise, making the best choice. So to be foolish, build your house on sand. So foolish is when you hear the word, but you don't obey the word. So when the storm comes, you automatically gonna sink and you will collapse. So we see that we see that he had a weak faith. and he made bad churches. He was unwise to build his house on sand. To build your house on sand, meaning that he heard the word and he did not take it to practice. So to obey the word, Jesus preaching. Jesus was preaching, he was hearing it, but he didn't want to take it in. He was being foolish, want to make his own church. And his church wasn't an unwise church at all. So Jesus taught this in parable about the builder, the wise and the foolish. But all the while he's talking about having that connection with him. You had a connection with him, and when all this hard time come, he gonna be right there to protect you and help you. Look at the Israelite. I mean, just said his disciple when I preached 2-3 days ago by calming the storm. They was right there with him on the boat. All that they called out his name, woke him up. And what Jesus did, saved their life, because all he did was spoke to the storm and it calmed down. So that's what we're saying. Have that connection with him. So when that storm comes, you can call out on his name and he will rescue you. But if you hear the word and you don't want to pay it no attention, and that's what he's saying. Why? That's what he's saying. Why are you calling me Lord? You know, and you don't want to obey my word. Because he is the truth, the true faith, the true believer, who gonna preach that word, and he will not harm you at all. He gonna preach that word that it will make sense to you to follow, you know, and they had back then they was blessed. They had Jesus back there with them, just like with the disciple. She had Jesus with them on the boat, and they still were terrified. Still were terrified. They woke them up. Do you care? We about to drown? And Jesus woke up and he spoke to the storm and the storm obeyed him. And so that's what we have to do. We got to call out Jesus' name. We got to obey his word. He was a good teacher back then. They had the best teacher, back then. And all he had to do was preach that word, and all you had to do was suck it in. So you had half was wise, sucked the word in, and it took it to practice. Built the house and on a solid ground, had a solid ground. So when that storm came, the house did not shake, the house did not collapse, the house was still standing. And that's what Jesus said. If you had a connection with him, you will still be standing. You will still be standing. When the enemies and the storm and the wind come at you, because the devil gonna come at you at full blast. But you got the connection with Jesus, what he's saying, you will not be destroyed. You will not collapse. You will not sink. You see what I'm saying? But if you foolish and you hearing the word, but you don't want to obey to the word, and you don't want to follow what the word said, and you don't want to take it to practice, so when all these things come at you from you making your own bad choice, you will collapse, you will crumble, you will fall down. The whole house will just sink into the sand. From you not obeying the word that he preached. And that's the reason why he told these stories of the wise and the foolish. Because the wise gonna listen to the word and pay attention to it, and take it in. The foolish gonna hear the word but not take it in. It's like you building your house without a foundation on top of sand. And that's the words that Jesus was using. And he always talking parable, and it always makes sense. It always makes sense. So that's the story he was saying on the wise and the foolish. So he's saying that you follow him. You gotta obey his word. You gotta listen to it. You gotta suck it in. And you have to put it to practice. And if you hear the word and you don't put it to practice, it's like you building your house on sand without a foundation. So always be wise and make the best choice. Don't be foolish and make your own choice. and you're not following Jesus' command. You're not sucking that word in because he don't want you following him. If you're not taking his word in. Because he gone all over. He gone all over preaching. So if you're following him, you gotta suck all that word in like Mary was doing. You gotta suck that word in, and you had to put it to practice. If you hear the word and don't put it to practice, it's like you building your house on sand to collapse when the devil come at you, when the wind come at you, when the storm come at you, when the hard time come at you, you gonna automatically sink. But a wise person, Jesus gonna be right there to help them through and make sure they don't get destroyed when you're wise and build your house on a strong foundation. So I hope y'all enjoy this word. And I see y'all on the next video. Have a blessed night.